A sitting U.S. senator just accused the Trump administration of covering up the killing of an American citizen and says ICE has become an unaccountable force operating above the law. This interview is explosive, and what Senator Tina Smith says about Minneapolis will stop you cold.
I want you to listen to Secretary Noem and what she had to say on State of the Union.
Officials are saying the Department of Justice is not working with them. Should they be working with the locals?
You know, I would say that these locals, if you look at what Governor Walz has said, if you look at what Mayor Frey has said, they've extremely politicized and inappropriately talked about the situation on the ground in their city. They've inflamed the public. They've encouraged the kind of destruction and violence that we've seen in Minneapolis the last several days, and I would encourage them to grow up, get some maturity.
So, Senator Smith, is Secretary Noem right in any way? Should Democrats also tamp down some of their rhetoric?
Well, I mean, that is rich coming from the member of the Trump administration who just hours after Renee Good was shot and killed by ICE agents proclaimed to the world that she was a domestic terrorist. And they didn't even know the woman's name. I think clearly what is happening here is that the Trump administration, with their mass deportation campaign, is they are arresting and detaining Americans. They are shooting and killing Americans, and that is making us all less safe. And now they are backing away from any sort of an investigation that would have credibility. I mean, it seems to me that what they are trying to do is to cover up what happened in Minneapolis this past week, rather than actually get to the bottom of it and do a true investigation that has integrity.
Yeah, and Senator Smith, you mentioned her saying that this is domestic terrorism. She doubled down on that argument this morning. She said that the vehicle was weaponized. Do you think there's any possibility, though, that she could be right as this investigation plays out?
Well, having looked at, all of the eyewitness videos and listened to eyewitness accounts on the grounds, I'm not seeing it. But again, why would she not allow a full and honest investigation, but instead, they are blocking out state investigators. And of course, as you no doubt know, Senator Klobuchar and I sent a letter to Pam Bondi a couple of nights ago, insisting that state investigators be included, as they have, almost always been included when we have the need for joint investigation. So I think their credibility is pretty shot, and they are struggling to get Americans to believe that this is the way it should be in our country. I was interested in the data that you were showing a bit ago. I don't think that Americans want to see what's happened in my state. Kids being arrested, citizens being arrested while they're working at Target stores, and the young man is calling out, "Call my mom, tell my mom what happened." Ministers that have guns put in their face and being asked, are you scared now? I mean, yeah. This is just unacceptable.
So do you think that, given that this is going to be a federal investigation now going forward, can the public trust the ultimate outcome of this probe?
I don't see how we can trust the outcome of this probe when they are blocking out state investigators, and when the people that are in charge, that are in power in the Trump administration, have already said what they think has happened here. It seems clearly that it would be a prejudiced investigation to me, and I think many here in Minnesota.
Senator, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez told me this past week that she believes that the ICE agent, Jonathan Ross, should be prosecuted for murder. Do you agree with that?
Well, I would say that this is a place where we need to have an investigation. This is how the court system and the judicial system works in our country, that we fully investigate what has happened. And we have some experience, some tragic experience of this here in Minnesota, when the Attorney General successfully prosecuted Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. But that was as the result of a thorough investigation that had credibility from the public. And that is not at all what we're seeing here today.
You said you want ICE out of your community. Do you think that ICE should be abolished?
I think that ICE should be reformed and not abolished. Clearly, I see a role in our country for strong border security, but we need to get serious about what is actually happening with this unaccountable agency that is not abiding by any of the laws or the procedures that we would expect to see from professional law enforcement.
Because the Department of Homeland Security argues that ICE has been effective in your state. You want them out of your state, but they say that they've arrested child rapists and others who have been accused of some serious crimes. Have they done some good in your state?
Well, I would like to see the evidence of what they say that they have done in my state. What I see is them harassing and terrorizing United States citizens and people who are here legally and lawfully. But to the point, what we need to look at is serious reforms here. And I think this is a place where we can dig in Congress.
Yeah.
Concern about this tactics that ICE are using breaks across all different party lines, and I would like to see some cooperation to make some improvements in how they are acting.
And to that point, there is a debate that's brewing in your party about how hard Democrats should go after ICE when it comes to the January 30th deadline to fund the federal government, given that the Republicans will, of course, need Democratic votes like yours to keep the government agencies open. Listen to what some of your colleagues told me just a few days ago.
I think it should be a red line because this is too dangerous to live in anybody's hands. I think Democrats should take a hard line position.
I think we have to use everything that we can to stop ICE this moment.
Will you make restricting ICE a red line in the funding fight? Must that be part of any funding bill?
Our focus right now, in terms of the appropriations bills, are getting the 3 bills that are going to be on the floor today over the finish line.
Should ICE be abolished, Senator? Will you
I have lots of problems with ICE.
Will it be a red line, ICE, restricting ICE funding in the funding fight? So those last two non-committal senators, of course, were the Democratic leaders. But you heard some other members saying that this should, in fact, be a red line in exchange for Democratic votes to fund the federal government. Where do you come down? Should Democrats make going after ICE a red line?
Well, so my view here is that for me, it is hard for me to imagine how I could vote to support a budget bill for the Department of Homeland Security, given how the Department of Homeland Security is functioning right now in my community. I want to see work done that would bring some serious reforms to ICE. For example, should there not be minimum training requirements for these officers? We understand that they're down to something like 6 weeks of training, which might explain some of the reckless behavior that we're seeing. Shouldn't ICE agents be required to wear a name ID and to not cover their faces? These would be two examples of reforms that we ought to be able to find some bipartisan support for.
This interview exposes a growing fault line in American politics, not just about immigration, but about accountability, transparency, and the rule of law. Senator Tina Smith isn't mincing words. She's rejecting the Trump administration's narrative outright, accusing Homeland Security under Kristi Noem of rushing to judgment, smearing the victim, and blocking a credible investigation. What makes this moment so powerful is timing. According to Smith, DHS labeled Renee Good a domestic terrorist before investigators even knew her name. And now, state investigators in Minneapolis are being locked out while federal officials control the narrative. This isn't just about one shooting. It's about whether Americans can trust an investigation when the same officials involved are the ones defining the outcome. Smith draws a sharp comparison to the prosecution of Derek Chauvin, reminding viewers that public trust only exists when investigations are independent, transparent, and accountable. And perhaps the most consequential moment comes near the end. Smith stops short of calling for ICE's abolition, but openly questions whether Democrats can continue funding DHS without major reforms. Training, identification, oversight. Those are no longer fringe demands. They're becoming mainstream. This interview signals something bigger. The ICE debate is no longer just about immigration. It's about civil liberties, federal power, and whether law enforcement answers to the people at all.